Okay, guys, welcome to the fan show. I'll be talking to a number of Spurs fans from around the world, where we'll be discussing Aston Villa 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1, a game that sounds like it was close. It was not close. And Tottenham are now out of both domestic cup competitions. Ange Postecoglou is teetering on the brink, to say the least. And I'm going to be talking to Spurs fans from around the world about it. And I'm going to start off with Tim Spurrier from the UK. Tim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I certainly can.
How are you feeling, mate?
I tell you what, I got a couple of almost exact messages from friends of mine who are going, in essence, I can't even be bothered to get angry. And that's what I kind of feel like. Yeah. Even when Tell scored, it was like, oh, I think I heard your reaction. It was like, oh, yeah, we scored, which I think is the first time I've heard a Spurs fan go, oh my God, we scored. We got 4 minutes. It was like, oh, we scored. Yeah. And I think that's kind of it, really. I thought we were better in the second half. First half was terrible. Literally, all they had to do was cut one ball out and they had 50 yards to run into. Yeah. Second half was better and a bit more organised, but I'm with you. It was one pace. There was no quick, move it on, do it. And the first time they actually whipped a ball into the cross, Tell scores, Yeah. Otherwise, it was sort of lethargic. Thought Jeb was pretty good as always. Pro was way too ahead of the ball. It's hard to know what to say, really, because it was just totally uninspiring. I think that's probably the easiest way to put it.
Can you come up with any reason why he started Son in the 9 and Tell out wide today?
Maybe just experience and that's it. But even Sonny, when he was chasing the ball down, looked, like he was a bit of a headless chicken, running around. And that's no disrespect to him. It was just, they were just passing around him. It reminded me, I was thinking about this, it reminded me of like under 10s football. Like, no, not even that, like under 6s football, when all the kids just run after the ball. Yeah. That's what we felt like. I know there was an alleged plan to it, but it felt like we were just crazily running after the ball and some half decent player just 1-2 and it's gone. So I have no idea. I think we need to score a goal, and I know we need to shore up, but we've got 3 basically defensive midfield players, and it's like, okay, it doesn't seem like the number 6 can sit in at all. No. It's Bentancur today.
Well, he's on his own when he does it. So like you said, the other two, for me, it is all about, the press, which in those first, the mythical first 10 games of last season was so amazing. They're all, half of them are doing it, half of them aren't, and they're all doing it at the wrong time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm with you on the sort of academy players. If they're leggy, get some young ones in who at least have got some spark. There was no spark. And I think you mentioned like Plymouth and Liverpool. Plymouth have played a shed load of games and they look up for it. Yeah. Leyton Orient played a shed load of games and they were definitely up for it. And our best player on their pitch was yesterday, right? Yeah. With Donnelly. So I don't really understand. It's always the excuse is always, well, we've had so many injuries. True, but did I hear right? They had no starting centre backs after their one went off either.
Yeah.
Everyone quotes Bournemouth and they're 8, 9, 10 players out. It didn't feel just like fatigue today. It felt like lethargic, uninspired, tactically poor. And by the end of it, by the time we scored, we were like, I don't actually care. I just feel like I've been beaten so long. I haven't got any energy left to even get angry about it.
Yeah. Tim, let me just bring up this a couple of super chats from Jerome. Jerome, thank you so much. He says, our midfield is non-existent. Tell should have been put as a striker. However, a fresher Villa with 7 days rest made the difference. And then he said, come on, man, every season is the same thing. It is end of days. We're down in the mud no matter who the manager is. I don't necessarily agree. I don't necessarily disagree with that about whoever the manager is. But Tim, you're definitely more my age than some of the younger kids. There's no way that Levy isn't at the very least thinking about it tonight.
He's got to be, right? And I can understand why he's not, because in many ways it's like there's a bind in there. Firstly, Ange protects him, and in terms of his shortcomings, and I think there are a few at least, and I'm definitely not Levy out sort of screaming and shouting person. But I don't see what the option is. I had a really good think about this, and I did a research. Who could they bring in? Who could they bring in? Who? I mean, it can't be Mason again, right? Unless they can pinch another decent manager, and I can't see any manager wanting to come here at the moment for a couple of months. So it might be between a rock and a hard place. Like, well, let's just play the season out because we're not going to get relegated. Touch wood, because the other teams are so much worse than they are. But what are the alternatives? I'm not sure there are any at the moment.
It's only that guy Terzic, really, because and the main reason I say that is because of the reports that came out when a Turkish team approached him a month or two ago, and his agent came out and said, "We're waiting for an offer from Tottenham Hotspur." A lot of people talked about him and said that he played some pretty defensive football, but he did get Dortmund to the Champions League final.
And it would only be I mean, I suppose it would worry me that it was a long-term contract, but would he come in on a temporary contract? I don't know. If anyone would come in, well, then I'm going to be a classic Spurs fan and say I can't. I mean, I sat with my season ticket up till last year. This is the first year I haven't had it for a long time. Watching a few years of football where I just want to bang my head against the seat, and then as you say, for 10 games, it was fantastic. I'm not sure I could cope with going back to defensive football, and maybe that's the fans' fault, right?
But it is defensive at the moment as well, because we're not good enough. I'm just going to bring up this comment, Barney. What's more depressing than watching Spurs concede a goal in the first minute is listening to you after another loss. The team is absolutely stuffed. Still believe we can win the Europa. Listen, everybody, as far as I'm concerned, it's totally subjective how you feel about your football team that you support, and it's totally up to you how much you invest in your football team. But you cannot, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to have a go at anyone for feeling how they feel about their football club or for being negative about watching a side when it is just, in my opinion, embarrassing when you have other teams laying it around from the 45th, 55th minute. And, as much as people who hate Daniel Levy and Enoch don't want to admit it, Tottenham have spent absolutely shitloads of money on this squad over the last 3 or 4 years. We're like the 3rd or 4th biggest spenders in the league. And we are in 14th in the division, and we're out of both cups. So as far as I'm concerned, just as it's absolutely justified for any of you to have your opinions, or if you're, staunch Ange Postecoglou supporters, you want to back him up to the hilt or whatever, I personally think it's absolutely fine for us all to feel how we feel, because we all are passionate about this club. We love this club and we want it to do well. But when it's bad, you have to be able to say it's bad. And it is, isn't it, Tim?
It's terrible. Did I hear I'm sure I heard a fact that we lost 21 of 46 since Ange's been there. Did we win the first 10 or nearly?
We won 8 of the first 10, drew 2.
There we go. So if you take that off, he's lost more than he's won, which is, it's awful, right? For a club of this size. That's not bad. It's awful. And I think you can't take a match out of context and go, well, actually, they were a little bit better than Liverpool. They were against Liverpool. That wasn't difficult because that was so atrocious. But I think in terms of, certainly the last few months, we've won literally a couple or 3 games, one of which was against someone who didn't even try and take a shot. And the other one was because we got a bit lucky against Brentford. Otherwise, we haven't really stepped up at all. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, what the hell is going on? Because it just seems like a spiral of despair, really. I can't see any other option to it. I'll tell you who I feel sorry for is that the young lads who actually fairly much to a man are doing pretty well, their first experience of being first-team footballers is this depressing. I'm worried we're going to ruin them.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring up this comment from Matt Richardson. Fuck's sake, can we stop with the Bournemouth comparisons? They play once a week, much easier to manage. Well, the reason I brought this up, Matt, and thank you for your comment, is because we only played once a week last season. And we still got loads of injuries. None of them could play together. And that was the excuses given as to why it went so badly after the first 10 games. Ange literally said it. He came out with the stat, my back four have only been able to play this amount of times together. Now, I've been given abuse in comments this week about how often I say it doesn't feel like it can be coincidence, the injuries. But, for me, it's like we can't but we can't talk about it only being because, we're playing twice a week, when last season we played once a week and we couldn't get results, and we got better results, but not after the first 10 games. It was very average. Like you said, it was losing as many as we were winning. And,
but I'm with you on that, Barnaby, in terms
sometimes
of
you just need
injuries.
a change, I'm afraid. Sometimes you just need change. Sorry, Tim, carry on.
Yeah, the injuries. It cannot be just because we're unlucky. There's so many injuries that are so similar that there's one or two reasons. Either the training's not right, or the mentality of the players isn't right. That they're not wanting, if it was really fighting for a place and wanting to claim your place, and then you'd be rushing back from injury. No one seems like they're rushing back from anything at the moment. It feels like some people are sitting on their hands, and it's a cross between that and what the hell's going on with the training, because something's horribly wrong with it.
Yeah, I want to talk about something else as well. I'm just watching some replays. Why are we so lacking in both pace and physicality? I'm going to talk now because I talked about the pace a bit in my post-match reaction, but the physicality, if you look at Villa's players, man to man, even the forward players, they're all quick and they're all big as well. You look at Leon Bailey, you look at Morgan Rogers, just they're kind of strong. Like, they're all strong, whereas it feels like, you look at Sonny and you look at Tell, like Kulusevski's strong, but he's very kind of slow. So obviously a great player and he's knackered. But, we're buying talent, and I do believe in a lot of the talent. I believe in Bergvall. I believe in Gray. I think Danso's a decent signing. He is strong. He's a centre-back, okay? But why is there no fucking pace or strength? And how many 50-50s do we lose as well? Like, it's just so frustrating.
I think I recall as an example, or as kind of, opposite example, whatever the word is, that McGinn, we had about 3 players around McGinn, and he's a bit of a unit, not the biggest though, but he kind of bundled his way through and beat all 3 just with strength and a bit of tenacity. And it didn't feel like even one of our players wanted to do something about that. And you're right, no one, even if we break through, no one's got the pace to break away from someone. Tell's not that player. He's fairly pacey, but he's not going to beat someone. He's not that kind of player. And I couldn't name another person in the team who could do that, which is really unusual for a Premier League side. And you're right, the midfield is neither particularly classy or particularly strong. It's kind of in the middle. It's okay on both, which is not good enough. You need a mixture of strong people, like you're saying, like your Rodgers and your other people who are like big lads, who are going to stop people. And we haven't got any of that. We don't seem to have any strength in our team.
Tim, thanks so much for being part of the show, mate. Appreciate it. I usually say hopefully you'll speak after a better result next time, but I'm not even going to say it anymore.
Next season. Next season,
maybe. All right. Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
thanks a
buddy.
lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, next up, we're going over to the USA and Scott in Portland. How are you, Scott?
Well, it's nice to finally get in here with you, because you've been voicing so many of the same things that I've been yelling at my dog that cowers in the corner. Everything you said, and you were a supporter of Ange for a long time, and right as you were breaking was right as I was breaking. Tamworth was a mess. That should never have been so many first teamers in that game. Solanke should never have been brought on. Just trust somebody will finally score. I don't know. Was Lancashire in that game? Who was our center? Oh, Son was in the middle. No,
yeah, he didn't start Lancashire. He should have started Lancashire.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't trust anybody. He didn't even trust Mikey Moore. I'm pretty sure he wasn't injured, right?
I don't remember, to be honest. To be honest, I'd blocked out Tamworth. I'd even forgotten about that.
Oh, man. That was the beginning of the end for me. I was like, there's no way Ange is ever going to change. I think it's because he's felt that he's been on the cusp of falling apart, that he has to keep playing these players like Porro. I mean, he'll have one good game out of about every 4 or 5 now. I mean, he's just wiped. And Son, he looks wiped. I think that's a huge part of him not driving at players like he once did.
So where do we go next? What's going to happen? What do you foresee happening next in the Spurs soap opera?
I just cannot envision. I mean, Charles Preston's right. I don't know who to get. Eden Terzic, I thought was the answer. And then I was hearing that he was very pragmatic, didn't really like to change things up too much, but he does change formations, does play players in different positions, I think he trusts the younger players, which I think is why some of the Dortmund players were against him, is that he was not playing the older players. But that's kind of what we need. We need to just put some of the players like Son on ice, and I don't know. I mean, you've been really speaking all the truths that I've felt for a long time. There's not enough Spurs supporters here in Portland, Oregon. I mean, there's a few, but I run into probably more Chelsea, Arsenal, Man United. I mean, of course, no one's mentioning Man United right now because they're right where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like there are a lot of people in the comments obviously saying, Ange has got 12 injuries and whatever. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying it. I'm really not. But the problem is, yes, we know that. So your job as the manager is to find a way to make these games incredibly difficult for the opposition to play. And instead, we're making it easy to play for Aston Villa and for Liverpool.
That Kinski error, I'm almost certain has something to do with, I mean, did you watch the replay and see all that space over there when he was running onto that ball? I'll bet you Kinski's like, oh my God, they're coming right in on goal. And I don't think he was ready for it. I played goalkeeper yesterday in a pickup game, and this guy hit a swerving ball at me, and I totally misplayed it into the goal. I'm sure I looked like a fool. But the reality is, I think he's losing a little bit of that, oh, I'm an awesome goalkeeper, because of how our defense plays. Porro was so far out of position. He was literally still in the middle third when the ball was coming into our box. He was running as fast as he could, and he could not catch up.
I think basically Ange is stuck between a rock and a hard place, which is where we played how we did against Liverpool, and everyone's like, "Oh, we didn't even lay a glove on them. We didn't have a shot on goal." So he's gone into the game before this one at Villa Park and gone, let's not die wondering, right? So therefore, Porro has started the game miles up the pitch in the first minute, and they're free on the left and get a goal from it, and then straight away you're chasing, and then that probably takes out 25-30% of any motivation in the players' bodies. Like the lactic acid probably starts coming in from how tired they all are.
And then you run back and you pull a muscle. That's a big problem.
And you're just chasing it back. And it's like, it's just like an endless vicious circle that I cannot see how we get out of, with or without Ange Postecoglou, ironically.
Well, but
it almost feels like there's nothing we can do.
Don't you feel like playing these inverted fullbacks is a big part of the problem? I mean, Spence.
I'm not even sure they're inverting much anymore.
Well, you still see Porro way up the pitch towards the middle, and he was actually running into Mikey a bit, and I think maybe that's why Ange pulled Mikey off. But then you look at our left, and Spence doesn't really invert, and I think that's maybe why Ange didn't think he could actually cut his way of playing. And he plays more of a left winger, which is, I think, what makes him more exciting. And I think if Ange had that willingness to actually play with wingers, like when Kulu made that cross, wow, we get a goal. Imagine that, a cross, which is way soccer should still be played. And I don't think Ange sees the value of that. I don't know how he couldn't. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Scott, listen, thanks so much for being part of the show, mate. Really appreciate it. I've got lots of other people to speak to, but let's talk again after a future game. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, bye. Okay, next up, I'm going to try and speak to Benny. But Benny, are you there with your camera? Can you turn it on? I'm going to give you about 5 seconds. There you are, Benny, mate.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks, mate. Tell me something. Tell me something strong that can get me away from this feeling like we've got something to look forward to.
The fact that we're out 2 cups, possibly. We've got United, obviously, on the 15th. I think we've got a few players back coming the 15th. I am trying to find the positive, but it's really hard to find the positive. The bloke before that mentioned that we're lucky against Brentford. We were lucky against Brentford, but that's how we should have been playing with the injuries that we've had. We need to dig deep. I don't understand how Ange doesn't. They've got all these tablet statistics of all these players and these teams. I don't understand how managers don't change their formations for every game and their and how they approach the games. And in different games, we seem to be approaching games the same every game.
Yeah.
Except
Eddie Howe actually did that for Newcastle against Arsenal in the second leg, where he put Fabian Schär on Declan Rice. It really worked for them. I was thinking exactly that during that game.
Yeah, so I'm hoping we've got United and Ipswich the next 2 games. I'm hoping we get I'm hoping we get a result. United are poor, but we're just as bad. But I've been struggling to come on the show really, because I've been trying to find words to muster to explain how I'm feeling. Like, I know there's a lot of fans that are levy out, and again, like the gentleman said a few previously, and you said it, we've spent so much money in the past 3-4 years. I've got there is definitely something going on with the medical. Well, I think we spoke before with the medical teams. We've had it when we had Darren Anderton. That we've always had a really bad injury crisis. Spurs have, like, since 1992, since I can remember, and it's just got worse. I don't know what it is. Also, the sports director Lange or whatever you call him, I'm unsure about him. I'm sort of got a lot of question marks regarding him, because Villa, weren't they planning to get rid of him anyway?
I don't know.
Yeah. So how do you feel that, like, over the next couple of games, how do you think we're gonna? I think this will be Ange's. I think the Ipswich game, I think, could be his final straw.
I think what we were told, I believe, a month ago, was that the players would be back end of January, beginning of February.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons why we were like, okay, well, look, Ange will get his players back for the Carabao Cup second leg and the Villa game in the cup, and then we'll see. And he didn't get those players back. Some of them re-injured themselves, 2 of them, Van der Ven and Richarlison. Yeah. And then we're out of both those trophies. And I'm sorry, it feels like we're in, like a black hole where it just keeps coming round to the same thing. And it's like a weird perfect storm where, because there's this corner of the fan base who have always been so angry with Daniel Levy for sacking managers at the wrong time in their. I mean, I have to say, I think people almost forget Conte was desperate to be fired. He got himself fired. He wanted out. He'd also had his gallbladder removed and 2 of his mates died. He didn't want to be there anymore. No. And Pochettino had been, I cried when Pochettino was sacked, but he had been angling for other jobs and he hadn't been invested in, etc., etc. So Levy was at fault for that. Mourinho, the football was absolutely shite and horrible.
Yeah.
But now we're in this like perfect storm where, because he's deemed to have sacked these managers at the wrong time previously, he can't sack Postecoglou. And listen, I'll say it again. I'm desperate for it to work for Postecoglou, but I'm embarrassed watching my football team at the moment, and I would prefer at the moment just to not be embarrassed.
Yeah, when you said about Mourinho, I think when we last spoke, over COVID, I think I only watched a few games. It was really hard to watch. I know we grinded out results, but it was shit. Mm-hmm. And Postecoglou, like we've had, I started watching the Villa match, and none of the players were up for it. And the second half, we improved. But as soon as they scored that goal, within 59 seconds, I think it was, I was like, fucking hell. Sorry if I swore, but I was like, I can't. We're in for a rough ride. And again, we miss a Moussa Dembele in midfield. We desperately do. Bentancur is they're all skin and bones. There's no meat on the players whatsoever. There's no player that we've got that can sort of grip the midfield. We've got a lot of injuries, but they're all young players. We haven't really got a leader. I know Son's a leader in terms of he's very good emotionally and he brings a Caramada together. But there's no Roy Keane, there's no Moussa Dembele, we haven't got that sort of we haven't got that player in our team, and I think that's what we lack. I think when Dembele went a few years ago, even though he was injured quite a lot, but when he played, like our team clicked. We had, do you know what I mean? We missed types of players, the Alderweirelds, the Tongans. We're just, I don't know.
Listen, Benny, thanks so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Really good, valid points. And let's see what happens next, I guess.
Right, take care. Have a good one.
Cheers, mate. Bye. Next up is Ronnie. Thanks for being patient, Ronnie. Tell me something I don't know. Tell me something where everything's going to change against Man United and we're going to go unbeaten for the rest of the season somehow.
I think you're living in fantasy land there, but yeah, it's so difficult. It's so deflating. The first half was just, I don't even know what to say. It was so easy for them to just play that pass into the final third where it was in between the defence and the midfield. It was so easy. And he tried to change it at half time and put Basuma in to fill in the gaps. And we tried to get back into it. It's just nothing was coming. Nothing.
Can I ask a question? Because this has just occurred to me. Basically, every game now, we have to make changes. We either have to make changes at half time or everyone in the fan base is like against Liverpool. You have to make changes at half time and he doesn't until like 10 minutes later when it's too late. But if you're having to make so many changes so regularly, so early in games, are you just not getting it wrong every single time?
Yeah, potentially. But you see with most managers, they have their starting 11. We don't have our starting 11. It's not there. And when teams don't have their starting 11, there's inconsistencies. And you see that with teams at the moment, like Man City, they don't have their starting 11. So they don't have the consistent results. And it's the same with other teams. That's why you see Liverpool doing as well as they are, because they have their 11 and they play every week.
So why don't we have our starting 11?
They're all injured.
Yeah, so why are we getting so many injuries? I mean, it's the same. It comes back around to the same questions. Just bad luck.
It is difficult. It's difficult.
What's going to happen next? Do you think? Are you confident that Ange will still be in the job at Old Trafford next week?
Yeah,
is it Old Trafford or is it? No, it's at our place. Sorry.
Yeah, it's at home. I think he'll still be in the job. Yeah. If you haven't sacked him already, then I don't see why I'd sack him now. It's a bit of a weird time to do it.
But don't you think it's
out of both cups? That's
yeah,
right,
because they will have said, "Well, give him both cups."
Yeah. Well, there is the Europa League, but that's till the end of the season, and you can't really base our Europa League run right now. You can't really say we've got a chance in it, or
well,
actually,
no
chance in it either. Because
sorry to interrupt, but actually, BBC put up a graphic where they showed Spurs' next fixtures, and actually, the Europa League next round is only in 3 games' time for Spurs. So in my head, I was like, "Oh, it's miles away, and we're going to have all these players back." I mean, I think we've got a relatively quiet February because we've got the next 2 game weeks off in midweek. Sorry, but I just don't have any confidence we're going to have our players back because they're either going to not come back or they'll get re-injured.
Yeah, it could happen with tournaments. You just don't know what's going to happen really. Like the Europa League winners in the past, none of them you'd expect to win. Sevilla won it when they were 16th in the league. You just honestly don't know what's going to happen. So you're just begging for like an unpredictability. West Ham won it when they were really low in the league as well.
Which players do we need to get back most importantly so that we don't suddenly have a midfield that is absent without leave every time an opposition makes 2 passes?
That's a very good question, actually.
Because we don't have any injuries down the centre midfield, do we?
No. And I'd say that's one of our bigger problems. I think we need a 6 desperately. I would say
Maddison obviously isn't a 6, but I guess the thing that we really miss when Maddison isn't playing is he goes to get the ball off his back forward and we're able to kind of keep control of the ball a bit better. But
I do think Bergvall gives that, to be fair, from time to time as well. I would still say it's Van der Ven. I'd still say it's Van der Ven because we've been playing a player who isn't a centre-back, a left centre-back almost every game. And Van der Ven gives that ball progression, Jesus. And we don't have that. We've really got it with Spence, but you don't see many players take him on. Son, I could go on a 10-minute rant about Son. Next game or game after, if we've got another player back, don't know when that is, but he does need to get dropped. He has been poor, really poor.
Yeah, I feel for him. Listen, Ronnie, thanks for being part of the show, mate. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Maybe we'll speak after a good one soon. Who knows? Cheers,
please.
Mate. Bye. Okay, Orky, you're next with your cat. How are you feeling, mate?
Oh man, another disappointing evening. What can I say? That first half was just, it just looked like it was so disjointed. The players all looked shot of confidence. It was awful. But then in the second half, I have to say, even though in recent games, obviously Basuma has been really, really poor, I felt that when he brought Basuma on at halftime, I think because in the first half, their midfield was just going through our midfield like there was no midfield. They were just running at us constantly again and again. And I think I believe, I saw a lot of the messages on boards and stuff, and I think everybody was a bit angry for him taking Mikey Moore off. But I think apart from that fantastic cross that he did to Son, which he should have put away. I mean, I can't believe Son didn't score, but Mikey Moore wasn't really getting in the game. They had him quite well. So I think he wanted to shore up midfield, and I think it worked because I think second half we were a bit more better.
Could have taken Sonny off, though. He could have taken Sonny off.
But then the thing is, who's he going to put on the left? I mean, maybe Reguilon. So yeah.
I thought he could have. I thought he could have put more. He could have moved more across the left, moved Kulusevski to the right, and then the midfielder comes in. But that's never going to happen. You're never. He's not going to do that. He's shown he wants to. He'd rather run Son into the ground. So.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, his experience. Obviously, he's been involved in so many, cup games and things like that. I just get the feeling that because I think I think Ange also is, between a rock and a hard place. Whatever he does, he's, he can't put a foot right at the moment. He's getting it from all angles. He's getting it from the, you look at some of his responses, like to the comments that Jamie Redknapp made and some other managers have made. You can tell that he's starting to lose it. He's cool as well. Now, in some ways, look, reality is reality. We do have a ridiculous number of players out. I know you said, he should still be getting but because we've got so many youngsters in there who are not experienced in this. So I think it was so evident in the first half, the mistakes that they were making, because when you feel under pressure, you start making mistakes that you wouldn't normally do as well, especially if you don't have the experience. They have, ironically, it's probably our younger players who've got any kind of reason to be proud of themselves. Players like Archie Gray, players like Jed Spence, who's come in. Those guys, in recent games, they're probably the only ones who can come out of these games with a little bit of credit because their performances, I believe, have been better than a lot of our experienced players like Son, like Bentancur, like even Kulusevski. I mean, today he was a bit more better. He was on it, but like against Liverpool, everybody just looks shattered and just out of. So I'm really glad that we've got these next few weeks where we're not going to have any games in midweek. I think we so desperately need a nice run of 6-7 days where we can, because I don't know if you know, obviously after a game, players normally have the next day or the next 2 days off in terms of, they don't do any hard training. They do recovery. And then usually, let's say if you played on a Saturday or Sunday, you come back on a Tuesday to start the hard training and to start doing the tactics for the following weekend's game. But we haven't been able to do that for months because we've had Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Thursday. Yeah. And I think this team clearly needs a bit of a break so they can actually, take a bit of a breath, take a bit of account and take stock of what's going on at the moment. And obviously we desperately need some of these. I mean, I thought we would have had at least I think today, even if we had Solanke, Odebear, Johnson as alternatives, experienced alternatives to the team that was available, even if we had 3 or 4 players back after the 12 that is out, I think Spurs potentially could have won that game. Because I think Villa were really good in the first half, but then in the second half, they did start to, as the second half went on, I think we had every chance. I think we could have, if we had a bit more fresher players, if we had a bit more alternatives, I think, we don't lose that game. But, this is the thing, the quality of the Premier, or at least Premier League teams, even if you've got a fully fit team, it just takes 2-3 players to be below their usual best. And you're going to lose points, or you're going to lose the cup game, But yeah, I'm really kind of, I just want something to change and for us to, you know, I mean, I really feel sorry for guys like Chris, you know, Cowlin, you know, these guys are going to all the games, they're going to all the grounds, I mean, Thursday night he was at Liverpool. You know, how awful it is to just go up there and like see a performance like we did in the first half, because first half was awful. It really was awful. It stank.
Totally true. And 6,000 of them went tonight, and your point is really valid. Thanks so much for being part of the show, mate. Hopefully talk after a better one.
Just one little quick thing. I've got a feeling, I don't care either way whether Ange gets sacked or not, but I just don't think like anybody who's worth anything is going to come in at this stage of the season. So if it's a choice between Ryan Mason for the rest of the season or Ange, I think I'd still prefer Ange, because I think once few of these players come back, and I think that's what Levy's going to do. I don't think he's going to get the sack. I think Levy's going to wait for these players to come back, and he's probably going to give him till, like, let's say around about mid-March, probably going to see what we're going to do in the Europa League as well. And if come sort of middle of March, if we're still doing really poor in the league, even though players have come back, if we're still doing really poor in the league, and if we, you know, bow out of the Europa League as well, then I think he's probably gone, because then we'll only have 6 or 7 matches left for the end of the season. Then he'll probably sack Ange, probably put Mason in charge for the final few games, and then in the summer we go looking, or until the summer we're looking for a new manager. But I think Ange is probably still safe, at least for another month or so, I would imagine. But
okay,
who knows?
Thanks, mate. That's a good point.
Thanks for having me on.
Have a good one.
Speak soon, Barnaby. Hopefully better.
Yeah, let's hope so. Okay, next up is Liam. How are you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I thought that was a pretty awful game, if I'm honest. Very terrible. Terrible as always. It's quite sad now that after every match reaction, it's coming on after a loss and speaking through analysis about how bad we've been. I think Bentancur, in my opinion, is terrible. He's too weak, nudged off the ball. He isn't a holding midfielder that we need. We need a player like, I know a lot of fans will disagree, but when we had Højbjerg, he gave us that control in the midfield. And I think every Spurs fan will agree when I say we never actually truly replaced Moussa Dembele when we got rid of him. Yeah. It was in that midfield is where like today, just cut open with one pass. I think the decision to bring on Basuma as well at half-time for Moore, who, in my opinion, was one of the only players who was actually looking to go forward in that first half, was pretty abysmal, if I'm honest. Basuma, I'd be quite happy if I never saw him in a Spurs shirt again. I think he's terrible. Just doesn't do anything. I don't understand what he does. I literally don't get what he does. Mikey's young, he's attacking, he goes forward, and you bring him off at half time, and he was the only player that, in my opinion, was actively looking to go forwards. Yeah. I think that was just a shocking decision.
What's going to happen next, mate? What is going to happen next? Do you agree with Orky in that you think... and there are quite a few people in the comments agreeing as well, basically saying that Ange will get at least the next month. I mean, one thing I was actually going to say is, do you know what I wouldn't mind? And I know it probably sounds like I'm Ange out and whatever. Listen, I'll say it again. I would love it to work for him. What I wouldn't mind is if Levy came out and said, we're going to give Ange till the end of the season, no matter what happens. So you can all not talk about it. He will not be leaving this club this season, minimum. He's been very unlucky with injuries. We believe in him. You know, like what would back in the day been called like the dreaded vote of confidence, but actually a real vote of confidence. Because at least in that instance, then, you know, it stops people like me banging on about it after each game. The only reason I'm talking about why I think he might get sacked is because it's embarrassing to watch tactically. It's embarrassing to watch tactically that 2 passes or often 1 pass can cut out 5 players who are standing within 5 yards of each other. That has got nothing to do with fatigue. That has got nothing to do with injuries. That is to do with your ability to tell players, and I don't care whether they are squad players who are tired or if he picks Ajayi and Casanova and academy players and just says to them, okay, I know that tactically, if you stand there, then we're going to be hard to beat. Because there are times like the Brentford game where we need to be hard to beat. So I wouldn't mind if Levy comes out and says, okay, Ange is staying, and then we can stop banging on about it. But what I do want is it to stop being embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, he's never going to do that, because whilst Ange is the topic of conversation, it isn't Levy, right? all the attention. I get, you know, the chants are directed at him at games, but I think me and you said it after the Liverpool game, as you rightly said. We've never properly protested. We say we want change, we never force change. The only way to do that is by actually protesting. So he'll never come out and say it, because whilst Ange is there and all the fans are against Ange, or the attention is taken off of him. You know, he isn't getting hate, he isn't getting this. Ange is getting it instead. I think that's how Levy's always acted. It's the manager is always the one that takes the fall, and you know, fans kind of then turn a blind eye to what Levy's doing. And like you said there as well, the injuries, in my opinion, I don't think can be an excuse for just a lack of heart and a lack of trying.
They can't be the only excuse. That's my point.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in my opinion, like, yeah, of course we have injuries. That's going to affect the squad. But like, especially like after the game on Thursday night, they literally didn't show any fight at all. Like nothing at all. Today, first half, in my opinion, there was no fight in that team. Nobody showed anything really. They weren't playing for the shirt again. And that's the difference. Injuries, of course, are going to affect your team, but you've got to fight. You've got to show something. Fight for it. But we don't. We just come out and it's the same every week. No passion, no fighting for the badge. And that's why we're in the second.
I think there's confusion. I think there's confusion with the team now. Do we go forward and play how we were taught for the last 18 months? Do we sit back? And they're kind of caught somewhere in between. And then add to that confusion, injuries, fatigue. Is this manager going to be here next week? Etc. etc. And then I'm afraid some basic but quite regular bad calls from Ange Postecoglou, like starting Son on the left and starting Son in 9 and Tell on the left today. I think now looks like a really bad call from Postecoglou. Him never suggesting we get any balls into the box, and then we play one into the box in the 90th minute and we score a goal from it. I don't know. It's like he's not helping himself as well as the things that are going against him.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I get Son is our captain, but he is not performing. He has been ran into the ground every game. He plays 90 minutes. Take him off. If he isn't performing, just take him off. You are allowed to sub him. It was kind of like that when Kane was here. If Kane was having I remember there would be like a bad couple of string of games. It was almost like it was illegal to sub Kane. You are allowed to take him off. If Son is having a bad game, make a change. Put Mikey on that wing. You know, shift Tell to that wing. Just make some sort of tactical change that could give us something going forward, because every ball that Son put in today was awful. It was bad, and he missed an open goal.
Yeah, he did. Liam, listen, thanks for being part of the show again. I appreciate it, mate. Hopefully things can improve. I fear they won't anytime soon, but let's talk again. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
And finally, the very patient Noel in Ireland. Noel, thanks for being so patient, mate. Okay, where are you at? Except for your camera.
Sorry, Barnaby. I'm just positioning myself again. Where am I at? Awful. You know, I was listening to you afterwards, and I could agree with everything you said. It was abysmal in the first half. Second half was a little bit better. You know, Sonny missed an open goal. I mean, last year, or even, you know, that Sonny, confident Sonny puts that away. We're back in the game. Very, very strange first half. I would have thought, you know, that it was obvious that we need to strengthen it in midfield, and it didn't happen. Why play for 45 minutes if something's not working? Change it. And when we did change it, it looked a little bit better. But, you know, we made Villa look like world beaters. And somebody made a point actually earlier on about the physicality, and I think I actually agree with you. Spurs have no real physical players. We're too nice. We're too easy to push off the ball. You know, I mean, we're bullied by teams. Newcastle came to the Tottenham Stadium a few weeks ago and literally bullied us out of the game. Yeah, and I'm afraid that's basically, you know, the story of our season. And it used to be, I used to remark about how that we actually scored so many late goals. I remember from Pochettino's time, you know, we got a lot of goals in injury time. Now we can't even buy a goal. And some of the decision making, even we got a goal back, Tell nicked one. Sonny gets a corner and puts it into the goalkeeper's hands. It's so frustrating. You know, I was surprised that he actually did take Bentancur off, because Bergvall was running around like a headless chicken in the first half, and he got a booking. And after he got a booking, he was afraid of being sent off. He never put a tackle in. You know, it wasn't really his fault because, you know, he obviously was afraid of the second yellow. Sarr comes on and, you know, some of his decision making, you know, even there was a ball to be played into the inside right position. He kicks it out over the sideline. You know, it's the basics. I said it to Chris last night, you know, cheap free kicks, you know, decision making, mistakes. It's like an epidemic. And the amount of, you know, like crashing into somebody, pushing somebody over, giving away free kicks, giving away possession. It's a sorry mess, Barnaby, and that's just the way I feel at the minute.
Yeah, it is. And just to bring up your point about physicality again, just thinking back to, you know, the best team in my lifetime, Pochettino.
Yeah.
Walker on the right, Rose on the left, both physical. Alderweireld and Vertonghen, both physical.
Yeah.
Dembele, Wanyama came in, physical.
Yes.
Lamella could put it about when he started on the right.
Absolutely.
Harry Kane, big physical guy. Really, the only one who was more of a maestro was Eriksen.
That's
right. He worked his nuts off, Christian Eriksen, so he made up for it with the amount of pressing and running he did. And we were hard to beat and a bit of a horrible team as well in terms of making professional fouls and that. And like you said, I'm afraid that whenever each team who were about to play do their analysis, I said it before this game, they will watch the Liverpool game and they'll be like, just get in their faces and just press them hard and be physical. And we gave away a lot of fouls today, but none of them were fouls where we were in 50-50s and we were going in too strong. We were losing every 50-50, but we were giving away fouls because we were so late to the ball. We were nowhere near any Aston Villa player when they were on the ball.
You know what I actually think? I mean, Jed Spence is a wonderful player. I think he was very shabbily treated. To me, there's no balance. A right-sided player on the left. Yeah. You know, he has to cut in. So it gives you that split second where, you know, another team can regroup. I personally would put Reguilon. I would give him a chance. He's fresh. He hasn't kicked the ball. So, you know, give the guy a chance. I would actually either put Porro or Jed Spence at the midfield. I would make a change because he doesn't seem to know his best midfield. Give somebody a run in midfield and see could they change it. Spence is a wonderful player. He's got loads of energy. And we don't actually have that in midfield. We don't have any player with real energy, you know, or a real clever thinking player. I think that something has to happen in midfield. And then maybe we can see a little bit of a difference. As you said, be a bit harder to play against. We're not physical at all. I think actually that everybody, when they look at the Spurs team sheets, they must be licking their lips. I said this to you last week, you know, that Aston Villa will be licking their lips after that performance against Liverpool. And I mean, they scored within a minute. Very unfortunate. But at the same time, Porro was so far up the field that Ramsey had the chance, but the keeper should have saved it. But in fairness to him, he did redeem himself with a few, you know, later on.
He did.
But it's an epidemic at the moment. I think the only godsend is that there is a week off, and maybe they can regroup, you know, get a bit of energy back into the legs, and maybe possibly get one or two. I actually thought today that with Liverpool and Chelsea both out, great opportunity. Push on and get, you know, not playing one of your bogey teams in the next round.
I know. I started the whole stream saying it's the hope that kills you, because actually the teams that I think would definitely beat Spurs easily are all out. But there you go. Whatever.
Yeah, look at Barnaby. I just will keep on going. And is it a United game on Saturday or Sunday? I'm not even sure.
I'm not sure actually, but I'm not sure. But anyway, look, Noel, thanks for being a part of the show. I've got to go, unfortunately, but I really appreciate you being part of the show. And let's talk after that United game next week.
Thanks, Barnaby. Thank you.
Mate. Bye-bye. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for watching the Fan Show. If you'd like to appear on a future episode, email tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com. That's tottenhamfanchris@gmail.com. Very important to us that this channel gives everyone a voice, particularly from those all around the world. So wherever you are from, please get in touch.